Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we could have a sit down and have a little chat about what I read in February. February was actually a really productive month of reading, considering I had a lot going on, and of course at the end of the month I did move out. I read 5 physicals and 7 Kindle books, so let's get right into it. Starting off with The Drift by CJ Tudor. I read this because I'd heard such a big hype about this book, and if I'm honest, I was kind of left a bit disappointed. I really enjoyed some of the characters in here, but I did feel like some of them were a bit boring and the storyline was just a bit eh. I think that what I've learned whilst reading this is I'm not into most post-apocalyptic storylines, and I need the thrillers to be more realistic. I just wasn't a massive fan of the post-apocalyptic vibes that this gave me, and I think if I had known that that's what this was like, I probably would have steered away from it. But overall I rated it a 3.5. In February I also did read Daisy Hates and Magnolia Parks, and where do I go with these two? Like, these books absolutely took me on a roller coaster and I loved every single minute. Daisy Hates is by far my favourite character, especially her brother Julian, and I can't get enough of these characters. I absolutely love them to bits. And this one probably doesn't need to be spoken about too much because I know everybody and their mum knows that this one is the one that makes you cry, and my god, did I sob 1,000,001 times reading this book. I do have to say that this is also my absolute favourite cover of the series so far. It is just absolute perfection and I'm obsessed. So I do 100% recommend this series, but at the same time, make sure that you bring your tissues because you will sob. I rated both of these a 5-star and I already want to reread them. Now, I've worked with W.H. Smith quite a few times now, and I recently received this, which is The Murder After the Night Before by Katie Brent. I have previously read How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brent, and I rated that a 5-star. So when I received this, I was so excited thinking it was going to be another 5, but I was a little bit disappointed. It is such an easy, quick read, and I do like the mystery elements in it, and there were twists in here that I didn't expect. But when I compare it to her previous work, I felt like it was just a little bit of a disappointment and I expected more. I rated this book a 3.5 overall, and it is currently W.H. Smith's book of the moment, which is super exciting, and I'm so grateful that I received a copy. And now, when I say I screamed when this came through the post, I was absolutely blown away. I was a part of the Mars Marathon, which is run by Insta Book Tours alongside Tandem Collective, and as a result I got to read this as part of a read along, so I received a gifted copy in order for me to do that, and I am so grateful for the opportunity. I rated this a 4.5/5-star. It is probably one of my favourite John Mars books so far, except for another one that I did recently just read, which I'll get to soon, but this was incredible. This is super twisty. It curled me up in a ball. I was obsessed. I did not want to stop. I listened to a lot of this audio and I just did not want to put it down. This book was so gripping and there were so many twists, I could not stop. I did find that this was also just really creepy. I feel like the representation of dementia in here was so well done. Overall, a really good thriller. Blimey. Whilst I'm speaking about John Mars, I may as well talk about the ARC that I received on NetGalley, and that is For the Family Experiment by John Mars. Now, this was so fantastic. This releases in May. I'm not too sure of the date, so I will leave it here. He does do 2 types of books. He does his suspense thrillers, and then he does his almost like futuristic kind of vibes. The futuristic ones are always so fun. They kind of remind me of episodes of Black Mirror. They're just so interesting and also so realistic as what can happen in the future. It was very much Black Mirror meets reality TV meets lies, drama, twists. It was brilliant. I highly recommend you go check it out if you're interested. I am thinking of reviewing that one in detail sooner towards the release, so if you're interested in a full depth review for that one, do let me know. Another anticipated release that I read this month was The Teacher by Freida McFadden. Dan is a massive fan of Freida McFadden, and we were both very excited when this one was released. This one as well was dark. This was probably the darkest Freida has ever gone so far, and I absolutely loved it. I know a lot of people won't like this book because of the topics that it involves. As you can probably imagine, it's about a teacher, so there are inappropriate relationships involved in this book, so a trigger warning for that. but that just made it more suspenseful, more drama. And I think it just made for a really good plot for the storyline. I feel like the twists were unpredictable. One at the end, I kind of did get an understanding of it before it happened, but then at the end I was still blown away. I just thought it was so good, and the characters were so annoying that I was obsessed with reading it. I did rate The Teacher by Freida McFadden a 4 just because I did guess some of the plot twists and I was a bit about them, but overall, amazing thriller, highly recommend it. It was great. I also read 2 novellas on Kindle Unlimited. That was The Exception to the Rule and The Worst Wingman. These were written by very well-known authors, and it's a collection that Kindle Unlimited and Amazon had collated together, and I thought it was such a cool idea. So many fab authors on here, and these are the first 2 that I read. I rated the first one a 5-star and I rated The Wingman 4.5. They were just such easy, quick romance reads, and they're perfect if you're just wanting a palette cleanser in between genres. I have already downloaded the next one, which I think is the Dreamboat one, and I'm going to be reading that next month, in that in March, and I think there's 6 in total. So if you're after a palette cleanser or anything just super easy, light and fluffy, I highly recommend you pick these ones up, especially these 2 because I've read these and I definitely recommend them. If you love a thriller that is set around a nanny in a home with a bunch of children and a lot of family secrets, then I think you'd really enjoy The Au Pair. I read this as part of a book tour with Zulu Book Tours and absolutely loved it. It was a really good thriller. I did feel like, as much as it was a fast-paced read, I read it quite slowly, which isn't usually my vibe. I don't know if that was because of how busy I was in the month or because I just wasn't thoroughly hooked. But I did really enjoy the story, and when I was reading it, I was enjoying it. I did rate it a 4-star. There were some really good points in there, but it wasn't anything incredible. But if you're looking for a thriller that does keep you occupied, I do recommend it. I think a book that really surprised me this month was The Stalker. I absolutely loved this. This book was so creepy. I listened to it on audiobook and you get the stalker POV, and it was just brilliant. So you follow a couple that then go on a romantic getaway to an island, and they think that they're on their own, but they aren't. There are a bunch of hidden secrets lying on this little island. So much is unburied. It is so gripping. It was a brilliant thriller. I love a secluded thriller. I think it really helps with the tension and the amp of the book, and I think this one was done really, really well. I also absolutely love thrillers where, for example, if it's a murder mystery, you get the murderer's POV. So to have the stalker's POV in this book just really upped a level on this one. And lastly, a book that I've been wanting to read for the longest time, but I just didn't ever pick it up, is The Surrogate Mother by Freida McFadden. Yes, I read 2 Freida McFaddens in the month of February, and I'm so glad I did. I know that Dan had recently read this and he loved it, so I knew that I had to pick it up as soon as I could, and I'm so glad that I did finally read it. It was a really different thriller to stuff that I had read before. It follows a couple who end up trusting in a co-worker to essentially be the surrogate for their child. It is just intense. It was so good. It was so well written, and it just had me infuriated. I absolutely loved the ending. It was so twisty, and I genuinely just didn't know where it was going to go. I highly recommend it. I know a lot of people love Freida McFadden for her Housemaid series, which, don't get me wrong, I love, but I really think you need to look at some of her older work as well, because it just hits a different spot. Freida is very good for making me feel very on edge, and also making me have a lot of trust issues with a bunch of people, which kind of shows how well her books are written. So honestly, if you haven't already, which I highly doubt you haven't, but if you haven't read a Freida, I definitely recommend you try her out. So those are all the books that I read in February. I read so many different books. I did stick to a lot of my thrillers and my romances. I didn't vary much else on genre, but what I did read, I loved. For the majority, I think there was a couple that kind of were a bit disappointing, but a lot of them actually had really good high rankings, which works out really well for me. I am so happy with the amount that I read, and I'm really excited for the month going forward. On the day of recording, it is the 4th of March, and I have had a pretty slow month so far, but I'm super excited to catch up with my reading. I've got a bunch of books that I want to read this month, so I will see you all next month with March's wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these books or you intend to after this little video, and what was your favourite book in February? If I was to choose anything, it would probably be The Surrogate Mother or Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. So there you go, there's mine. What is yours? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.